Welcome to HFY Era, the home of powerful humanity-first sci-fi stories. Before we dive into today's epic tale, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring more thrilling HFY stories to life. Let's begin the adventure. Please like, comment and subscribe. This Chanel tea. The Galactic market was alive with noise and light. Stalls lined both sides of the wide street, each glowing with strange colors, selling food, metals, crystals, and alien spices. Voices of many species echoed together, a mix of shouts, bargains, and laughter. It was a place where almost anything could be found. But it was also a place where prejudice walked hand in hand with trade. Among the crowd walked Ethan, a human mechanic. His hands were marked with grease and small burns, proof of the hours he spent fixing ships that docked at the edge of the market. He came here often to buy spare parts, sometimes food, sometimes tools. He was not rich, but he was respected for his skills. Humans were not the strongest species, but their talent for building and repairing made them useful. As Ethan searched for a part he needed, he noticed a sudden silence near the largest food stall. A tall figure stood before the counter, scales shimmering like dark bronze, wings folded tightly against her back, and eyes glowing faintly like embers. She was a dragon lady, one of the last of her kind, proud and noble, but now treated with fear and suspicion. The shopkeeper, a wide-bodied alien with 4 arms, crossed them all in front of his chest and hissed, "No food for your kind, you bring fire and death. You bring nothing but trouble." The dragon lady's voice was calm but heavy. "My people are hungry, my table is empty. We wish only to buy bread and fruit." But the shopkeeper spat on the ground and shouted louder, "Leave before I call the guards. We do not serve predators." Around them, other aliens stopped to watch. Some whispered, some laughed quietly. Parents pulled their children closer, afraid of the scaled woman who only wanted food. Ethan stood in the back, his jaw tight. He had seen this before. The dragon kind had once been warriors. Yes, but that was long ago. Now they were scattered, poor and starving, yet still hated. He watched as the dragon lady lowered her head slightly. Pride burning in her chest, she turned away, her hands empty. The crowd slowly parted as she walked. Some smirked, others whispered cruel words. The sound cut through the air like knives. Ethan felt anger rise inside him. His fist clenched. He could not just stand there. As the dragon lady passed him, her wings brushing slightly against her cloak, Ethan leaned close and whispered, "Come with me. I'll fill your table." She stopped, her glowing eyes turning to him with sharp suspicion. For a long moment she said nothing. She studied him. This human with rough hands and a tired face, a mechanic, not a warrior, not a rich trader. But there was no mockery in his eyes, only honesty. "Why would you help me?" she asked, her voice low, almost like a growl. Ethan swallowed, his voice steady but soft. "Because no one else will. Because it is wrong to let someone go hungry when I can help." The dragon lady's wings twitched. She could hear whispers around them. The crowd was watching, staring. Some laughed, some pointed. The idea of a human offering food to a dragon was unthinkable. Yet Ethan stood firm, his gaze calm, his voice steady. Slowly, very slowly, she nodded. "Then I will walk with you." Mechanic. Together they left the crowded street. The murmurs followed them, whispers of disbelief and anger. Some shouted warnings. "The human is a fool. The dragon will burn his shop." Others spat words of hate. Humans mixing with predators. It will only bring death. But Ethan did not turn back. His steps were steady. The dragon lady walked beside him, tall and silent. Every move of her wings made the air ripple. Some part of her still carried the pride of her people. But Ethan could see the weight of hunger in her eyes as they reached the edge of the market, where Ethan's workshop stood with rusted ships and broken machines piled around it. The noise of the crowd faded. The dragon lady looked at the small workshop, then back at Ethan. Her voice was quiet. "You risk much for me, human. Do you not fear the anger of the market?" Ethan unlocked the door to his workshop, pushing it open with a creak. He looked back at her and said simply, "Let them be angry. A full stomach matters more than their empty words." Inside, the air smelled of oil and metal, but also of warm stew that Ethan had left cooking on a small stove. He motioned for her to sit. She hesitated, her pride telling her to refuse, but her hunger stronger than her pride. She sat carefully, her wings folding behind her. Ethan placed bread, fruit, and a bowl of stew before her. He said nothing more, just pushed the food closer. For a long moment she stared. Then she picked up the bread slowly, carefully, as if afraid it would be snatched away, as she took her first bite. Her eyes closed for just a second, and Ethan saw the truth. Beneath the fire and the scales, beneath the wings and the power, there was a woman who had known too much hunger, too much rejection. He sat across from her, watching quietly, his heart heavy but his mind firm. He knew this choice would not be without danger. Helping her meant standing against the market, against their rules, but as he saw her eat, he also knew it was the right choice. The dragon lady finally spoke, her voice softer than before. "My name is Serenia. I will remember this kindness." Ethan nodded once. "My name is Ethan, and as long as I live, you will never have an empty table again." Outside, the market still whispered, but inside that small workshop something new had begun. Something dangerous, something powerful. A bond between a human mechanic and a dragon-born exile. And though neither of them knew it yet, this bond would change the future of the galaxy. The night was quiet around the edge of the galactic market. The noise and chaos of the busy stalls felt far away, replaced by the low hum of machines and the occasional spark of tools inside Ethan's workshop. It was a place of grease and metal, full of broken starship parts stacked in messy piles, wires hanging from the ceiling, and half-built machines resting on tables. Serenia sat carefully on a chair that looked far too small for her tall figure. Her wings brushed against the wall as she folded them tightly. The scales along her arms glowed faintly in the dim light, reflecting the flickering sparks from Ethan's repair bench. She looked out of place here, a dragon-born noble creature, sitting in the workshop of a human mechanic. Ethan moved around the room with calm steps, pulling open drawers and finding plates. He placed food on the table, fresh bread, fruit, and a steaming bowl of stew. He had no riches to offer, no exotic dishes, but what he gave was simple and honest. For a long moment, Serenia did not touch the food. Her pride still stood in her way. Her kind had once ruled planets. They had once been feared warriors. Now she sat in a workshop. Being fed like a beggar, she hated the feeling, hated the weakness that burned in her chest. But hunger was stronger than pride, and at last she lifted the bread and ate slowly. Carefully, Ethan sat across from her, his arms resting on the table. His eyes studied her, but without judgment. He said nothing as she ate. He did not rush her, did not mock her. He simply waited. His silence was heavy but not uncomfortable. Finally, Serenia spoke, her voice low but edged with fire. "You risk much, mechanic. The market will not forgive you for this. They will say you betrayed them, that you fed a predator." Ethan leaned back in his chair, his tired eyes calm. "Let them talk. Their words do not fill stomachs, their rules do not repair ships. If they want to hate me for sharing food, let them." Serenia tilted her head, watching him with glowing amber eyes. "Why, though? Why risk yourself? You are human. You could walk away, leave me to starve, and no one would blame you. In fact, they would praise you." Ethan's hands curled into fists. He stared at the table for a moment before answering, his voice steady but filled with weight. "Because I know what hunger feels like. I know what it is to have empty hands and to hear doors slam in your face. I will not stand by and let it happen to someone else." For the first time, Serenia's fierce eyes softened. A silence grew between them, heavy with unspoken truth. But outside, the world was not silent. Already the whispers had spread across the market. Aliens who saw the dragon lady walk into the mechanic's workshop carried stories like fire and dry grass. Some said Ethan was foolish. Some said he was dangerous. Some said the dragon would eat him before dawn. And others whispered that maybe, just maybe, something strange was happening. Ethan rose from his chair and went back to his tools, sparks flying as he worked on a broken power cell. Serenia watched him in silence, the sound of his steady hands on metal filling the room. Finally she spoke again, her tone sharp. "You do not fear me?" Ethan gave a short laugh under his breath. "If you wanted to kill me, you could have done it already. You picked up bread, not my throat." "That is enough." Her wings shifted slightly as if his words had unsettled her. "You speak boldly for someone so fragile." "Maybe," Ethan replied simply. "But I've learned something fixing ships. The strongest engines are not the loudest ones. Sometimes strength hides in quiet places." The dragon lady leaned forward, her claws tapping lightly on the table. Her eyes narrowed. "And you believe humans are strong, mechanic?" Ethan looked up, his gaze steady. "I believe kindness is stronger than cruelty. And I believe friendship is stronger than fear. If that makes me weak, then so be it. For the first time, Serenia allowed a small smile to touch her lips. It was not warm, but it was real. The door to the workshop creaked suddenly. Both of them turned sharply. Serenia's wings twitched, ready to spread wide. Ethan reached for a tool on the table, but relaxed when he saw only a neighbor peering inside. The alien man's eyes widened when he saw Serenia sitting at the table. His face twisted with disgust. He spat on the ground and shouted, "Traitor, you feed the beast." Before Ethan could reply, the man ran off into the night, shouting loud enough for half the market to hear. Serenia's face hardened again, her claws curling into the table. "You have made yourself a target now, mechanic. They will come." "They will not forgive this," Ethan sighed, wiping grease from his hands. "Let them come." I've faced worse than angry words, but deep inside he knew it was not so simple. The market could turn violent. They could drive him out. Or worse, he looked at Serenia, her wings casting long shadows on the wall. He wondered if he had just stepped onto a path he could never leave. As the night grew deeper, Serenia finally rose from the chair, towering over the human mechanic. She looked at him for a long time before saying, "You have given me food, Ethan. In return, I give you my word. As long as I live, no harm will touch you while I stand beside you." Ethan met her gaze, his jaw tight but his voice steady. "Then I suppose we are allies now." Serenia's eyes glowed faintly brighter. "Not allies, mechanic, friends, and that is rarer than gold in this galaxy." Outside, the market still whispered. The alien who saw her would spread his words. By dawn, the whole market would know. A human mechanic had invited a dragon into his home, fed her and dared to stand by her side. In that workshop, with simple food on the table and sparks dancing from broken machines, something dangerous had begun, something no one could stop. A human and a dragon had chosen each other, and the galaxy would tremble when it learned what that meant. Morning came with a heavy silence. The sun's rays fell on the galactic market, but instead of its usual noise and laughter, there was tension in the air. Whispers traveled faster than footsteps, faster than trade, faster even than truth. "They say the human fed her," one alien muttered. "They say he gave bread to the beast," another replied. "I heard she swore herself to him, like some old warrior's oath," a third added. By the time Ethan opened the doors of his workshop, half the market already stood waiting. Faces of different species turned toward him, some curious, some angry, some afraid, and behind him Serenia stepped out into the light, her scales glowing faintly gold, her wings folding tightly against her back. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some stepped back as if her very presence burned. Others narrowed their eyes. Clutching tools or weapons close, no one spoke at first. But the silence was louder than words. Ethan ignored them, as if their stares were nothing more than passing wind. He carried a crate of machine parts to the front and set it down. His hands were steady, but his heart beat faster. He knew the line had been crossed. There was no turning back now. A voice finally broke the silence. It was the merchant who ran the grain stall, a tall insectoid with glittering eyes. "Human," the merchant hissed. "Why do you bring her among us? Do you want blood spilled in these streets?" Ethan straightened, his jaw set. "She is no enemy here. She is hungry, that is all. And hunger does not make a monster, it makes a victim." Murmurs filled the crowd. Some nodded, uneasy but thoughtful. Others growled or hissed in disagreement. Serenia stood tall and silent, her gaze cold. She did not beg for acceptance, did not lower her head. She met every stare with quiet fire in her eyes. Another voice rose, sharper and crueler. It came from a reptilian traitor with sharp fangs. "You are a fool, human. Do you not remember what her kind did? Do you not remember the wars, the burning fleets, the planets turned to ash? Dragons do not change, they only wait for weakness." Ethan's fists tightened. He remembered the stories too. He remembered the warnings about her kind. Yet when he looked at Serenia, he did not see a warlord. He saw someone who had been left to starve in the cold before he could answer. Serenia spoke. Her voice was steady, carrying across the market. "Yes, my kind fought. Yes, we burned worlds, but tell me this. Reptile, have your kind never shed blood? Have you not fought wars, taken lives, left scars across the stars? Are you without sin while I am chained to mine?" The crowd shifted, some lowered their eyes. Some muttered angrily, but none could deny her words. For every species there had its own history of war, its own shadows. The reptilian snarled, but did not reply. Instead, he spat at the ground and stormed away. Others followed him, but many stayed, uncertain. Ethan stepped closer to Serenia, his voice low but firm. "They will not forget this." "I do not want them to," she replied softly. "Let them see, let them fear. Fear keeps them from testing the edge of the blade." As the market slowly broke apart, Ethan led her back into the workshop. He closed the door behind them, his chest heavy. "They will turn on us soon," he admitted. "Yes," Serenia said calmly. "But now we will know who stands against us, and who stands with us." The day passed slowly. The workshop was quiet, but outside Ethan could feel the shift. Rumors were no longer whispers, they were storms. Stories twisted with every telling. Some said the human was her servant, others claimed he was her captor, and others whispered of something stranger. A bond forming. A dangerous unity. By nightfall, footsteps echoed outside his door. Heavy and purposeful, Ethan froze. His tools lay on the table. Serenia's eyes narrowed, her wings twitching. She could smell tension in the air like smoke before fire. The door creaked open and 3 figures entered. Not merchants, not neighbors, but armored guards of the Market Council. Their leader, a tall alien with silver skin and dark, sharp eyes, stepped forward. His voice was like metal grinding on stone. "Human Ethan, you are summoned," he declared. "The council demands answers. You will come." Now Ethan looked at Serenia. She gave a small nod, but her claws flexed against the table. She did not trust this council, neither did Ethan, but refusal would only make things worse. He stood, wiping his hands on his worn shirt. "Then I'll come," he said simply. Serenia rose too, but the guard lifted a hand sharply. "Not her. She will not step into the council chambers." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then neither will I." The guard's eyes narrowed. "Do not test us, human. This is not a request." The air grew tense. Serenia's wings flared slightly, her scales glowing brighter in warning. Ethan could feel the moment stretching thin. One wrong move could turn the room into chaos. At last he raised a hand to Serenia, calming her. His voice was steady. "It's all right, I'll go. Stay here." She hesitated, her eyes burning with distrust, but finally folded her wings and sat back down, her gaze locked on the guards. A silent promise of what would happen if they harmed him. Ethan followed them out into the night. The streets were quiet, but he felt eyes watching from the shadows. The whole market waited to see what would happen. The council chamber was a wide circular hall, its walls lined with banners of different species. At the center stood the high seats, where the council leaders watched him with cold eyes. "Human," the silver-skinned leader spoke. "You have broken the order of this market. You fed the outcast, you housed the predator. You risked the peace of us all. What do you say for yourself?" Ethan stood tall, though the weight of their stares pressed heavy on his chest. His voice was steady, carrying in the silence. "I say this. If our peace is so fragile that a single meal can break it, then perhaps it is no peace at all. If mercy is forbidden, then what kind of order have you built?" The chamber stirred. Some council members frowned, others whispered. But one voice rang clear. A counselor with pale, glass-like skin leaned forward. "You speak boldly, human, but bold words are dangerous. Perhaps too dangerous." Ethan met his gaze. "Truth is always dangerous, especially when fear rules the room." The silver-skinned leader raised a hand, silencing the chamber, his eyes narrowed, cold as steel. "Then let us see how dangerous your truth truly is. Human mechanic, you will face judgment tomorrow, and the dragon will not protect you." The guards led Ethan away. His heart heavy, but deep inside a fire burned. For he knew Serenia would not stay silent. He knew this was only the beginning. And outside, in the shadows beyond the market, other eyes watched, soldiers not of the council, but of something far greater, something that would soon shake the galaxy itself. The council chamber doors closed behind Ethan with a heavy echo. The guards marched him down narrow halls lit by cold blue lamps. Chains were not on his hands, but the feeling of chains pressed around his chest all the same. Every step away from Serenia felt heavier than the last. Back in the workshop, Serenia stood perfectly still, her wings folded tightly, her claws gripping the edge of the table. She stared at the door long after Ethan was gone. The words of the guard repeated in her mind. "The dragon will not protect you." They thought they could separate them. They thought she would sit quietly while the human faced judgment. They were wrong. Her people were proud, and pride had often led them to ruin, but she was not blind. She had seen Ethan's courage, his stubborn kindness. She owed him more than food or warmth. She owed him loyalty. She owed him her word. And her word was stronger than steel. Serenia spread her wings, the tips brushing against the walls of the workshop. Sparks from Ethan's machine still glowed faintly on the bench. She looked at them for a long moment, then turned toward the door. Her claws clicked against the metal floor as she stepped into the night. The market was quieter than usual, yet she felt eyes follow her every move. Aliens leaned from windows, whispered from corners. Fear trembled in their voices. But beneath the fear was something else, something dangerous, hope. She moved through the streets until the tall towers of the council rose before her. Their black stone walls loomed over the market like a threat. Torches burned at the gates and armored guards blocked the entrance. Their weapons hummed faintly, ready to strike. "Dragon!" one guard spat as she approached. "The council forbids your kind within these halls leave. Or be cut down." Serenia stopped a few steps away. Her amber eyes glowed like embers in the dark. If the council is so afraid of one starving dragon, then they are not rulers. They are cowards. The guards tightened their grips on their weapons. One stepped forward, lifting his blade. "Last warning," he growled. Serenia's wings flared wide, shadows stretching across the courtyard. Her voice rolled like thunder. Last warning. Indeed, but before the first strike could fall, a horn sounded from the far side of the market. The guards froze, heads snapping toward the sound. Another horn answered, louder, closer. Then shouts echoed through the night. Serenia turned her head sharply. Her senses sharpened. She could smell them now. The scent of metal, oil, and blood. Not market guards, not traders, something heavier, disciplined. From the shadows of the outer streets, armored figures marched, their boots striking in perfect rhythm. Their armor was marked with the crest of a distant star empire, one long forgotten in the market. Their helmets glowed with red slits for eyes. Their rifles crackled with power. The crowd scattered in fear as the soldiers advanced. The guards at the council gate raised their weapons, confused. "Who are they?" One whispered. Serenia's eyes narrowed. Her wings folded back slowly. "Not friends," she muttered. Her claws curled, ready to strike. The soldiers surrounded the council tower in a matter of moments. Their leader, a tall figure with a long black cloak and silver mask, stepped forward. His voice rang out, cold and mechanical. "By decree of the Dominion, this council is dissolved. Power belongs now to the strong. Those who resist will be crushed." The council guards looked at one another in shock. Some raised weapons, others hesitated, but the Dominion soldiers did not wait. With a single command, their rifles lit the night. Blasts of energy tore through the courtyard. Guards fell screaming, walls burned, the market shook with fire and screams. Serenia spread her wings and roared. Her voice split the night like thunder. Sparks of golden flame burst from her mouth. Scattering across the invading soldiers, they stumbled back, shields rising. But their formation held inside the council chambers. Ethan heard the first blasts. His head snapped up, his hands clenched. He tried to rush to the door, but two guards blocked him. "Stay back, human," one barked. The walls trembled. The sound of battle rolling closer, Ethan's gut twisted. He knew that roar. Serenia was out there, and she was not alone anymore. One of the counselors stood, fear plain on his glass-like face. "The Dominion," he whispered. "I thought they were myths." The silver-skinned council leader snarled. "They are no myth. They are conquerors, and they will take this market as they have taken worlds before." He turned sharply to Ethan, his voice like steel. "This is your fault, human. You brought her here. You brought this curse." Ethan stepped forward, his voice hard. "No, this was coming whether I fed her or not. You built your peace on fear and silence, and fear always invites wolves to the door." The chamber shook again as an explosion ripped through the outer gates. The counselors screamed, some ran. The guards rushed to form lines. But Ethan only thought of one thing. He had to reach her outside. Serenia fought like fire-given flesh. Her claws tore through steel. Her wings struck soldiers aside. Her flame burned against their shields. But they were many, too many. They closed in, their weapons crackling. Every blast scorched her scales. And though she stood tall, her strength was not endless. Then, above the chaos, a voice cut through. "Serenia!" Her head snapped toward the sound, through the smoke and fire. Ethan ran from the council doors. His clothes torn, his face smeared with ash. But his eyes were steady. She felt something shift inside her chest at that sight. The bond she had spoken of in the workshop. The promise she had made. It was no longer just words, it was real. Ethan grabbed a fallen weapon from the ground, clumsy in his human hands, but his grip was firm. He took his place at her side, facing the Dominion soldiers. The masked commander lifted a hand, signaling his troops to pause. His voice rang out cold and mocking. A human and a dragon standing together. How poetic, how foolish. Do you think you can stand against the Dominion? Ethan lifted the weapon, his voice calm but unyielding. We've stood against worse, and we're still standing. Serenia spread her wings wide, fire glowing in her throat. Her voice rolled like thunder. Let them come. The soldiers readied their weapons. The air charged with fire and death. The market held its breath. In that moment, a human mechanic and a dragon-born warrior stood side by side. And for the first time in many years, the Dominion hesitated. For in their unity was something far more dangerous than weapons, something the galaxy had almost forgotten: hope. The first blast came like lightning. A Dominion rifle fired, the bolt screaming through the smoke. It struck the ground at Ethan's feet. Sending dust and sparks into the air, he staggered back. But his grip on the weapon never loosened. Serenia roared, golden flame pouring from her jaws. The fire washed against the soldiers' energy shields, glowing brighter with every second. They held for a moment, then cracked. The heat burning through, the front line stumbled. Their armor scorched black. The commander raised his hand sharply. Advance, he commanded. His voice was cold, calm, as if the chaos around him were nothing more than a planned step in a dance. The soldiers moved forward in unison, their rifles glowing, blasts tearing through stalls and stone walls. The once busy market was now a battlefield, fire and smoke rising into the night sky. Aliens who had once whispered in corners now fled in terror, some clutching children, others dragging carts of goods. Ethan ducked behind a shattered crate, shots sparking around him. His heart pounded in his chest. Every instinct told him to run, to hide, but when he looked at Serenia, wings spread wide, claws tearing through armored troops, he felt something stronger than fear. He felt a duty. He fired the stolen rifle. The recoil nearly knocked him flat, but the shot hit true. A Dominion soldier fell back, armor smoking. Ethan sucked in a sharp breath. He had never killed before, never thought he could. Yet now there was no room for hesitation. Serenia landed hard beside him, her wings folding close. Her scales burned with black scorch marks, but her eyes blazed brighter than ever. Stay low, she growled. And keep shooting. Ethan gave a short nod. He wanted to say something clever, something brave, but there was no time. The Dominion pressed forward, wave after wave, their numbers endless. Then, from the shadows of the ruined stalls, something unexpected happened. Figures emerged. Merchants, guards, traders, even thieves. Many carried nothing more than clubs, knives, or stolen rifles. Their faces were pale with fear, but their steps were steady. One voice rose above the chaos. It was the insectoid merchant Ethan had argued with the day before. His glittering eyes were hard, his voice strong. If the Dominion takes her, they will take us next. If they silence him, they will silence us all. Fight. The crowd erupted. The market itself came alive. Blasters fired, stones and bottles flew. Aliens who had once cursed Serenia now stood at her side. The Dominion soldiers faltered for the first time. Their perfect formation broke under the sudden storm of resistance. The commander tilted his head slightly. As if intrigued, his voice cut through the noise. So the weak dare to resist. Interesting. He lifted his hand, and from the shadows behind him stepped new machines, tall walkers of steel, their legs sharp as blades, their cannons humming with deadly energy. They moved like predators, slow and deliberate. The crowd gasped. Some faltered, fear returning. But Serenia spread her wings wide, towering over them. Her voice thundered, "Do not falter. They bleed like any other. They burn like any other." She launched herself into the air, her claws striking one of the walkers. Tearing at its armored head, sparks burst as its cannon misfired. Crashing into the ground, Ethan fired again, his shots ripping into the legs of another machine. One leg buckled, sending it crashing sideways into a burning stall. The market shook with chaos. The Dominion pressed harder. But now the fight was no longer one-sided. Every corner of the street became a battlefield. Every stall became a barricade. Every voice shouted the same truth. They would not kneel. Inside the council chamber, the leaders cowered. Some shouted for surrender, others demanded escape. The silver-skinned leader slammed his fist on the table. We cannot fight them, the Dominion is endless, but one counselor, pale and trembling, whispered, and yet the human fights and the dragon fights, perhaps we are not endless either. The wall shook as another explosion tore through the chamber. Dust rained from the ceiling. The council was no longer safe. The market was no longer safe. Nowhere was safe back outside. Ethan's rifle hissed and died, overheated from too many shots. He tossed it aside and grabbed a length of broken pipe, swinging it like a club. He ducked under a soldier's strike and slammed the pipe into the soldier's helmet. Sparks bursting, the soldier fell. Serenia landed beside him again, her scales smoking, blood streaking down one arm. Her breathing was heavy, but her eyes were alive. You fight well. Mechanic, she growled. Ethan wiped sweat from his brow. Not well enough, he muttered. There's too many. The commander's masked face turned toward them. His cloak swayed as he stepped forward. The soldiers parted around him, giving him room. He moved with the calm of someone who had never known fear. You are amusing, the commander said, his voice echoing. A dragon and a human, standing together as if you matter, as if your bond changes anything. But bonds are nothing against power. He lifted his hand, energy crackling between his fingers. His weapon was not a rifle, but something older, darker. The air itself seemed to bend around it. Serenia stepped forward, wings flaring, her body shielded Ethan. Her voice was low, filled with fire. If you want him, you go through me. The commander tilted his head slightly. Gladly. He unleashed the blast. A beam of dark energy shot forward. Striking Serenia square in the chest, she roared in pain, her body thrown back into a burning wall. Dust and flame swallowed her. Serenia. Ethan shouted, his voice cracked, his chest ached as if the blast had struck him too. He ran toward her, ignoring the soldiers who closed in. She pushed herself up slowly, smoke rising from her scales. Her breath came heavy, but her eyes still glowed. I will not fall, she growled. Her wings spread again, torn but unbroken. The crowd saw her rise, saw her stand against the impossible. And in that moment something shifted. Their fear became fury. Their despair became defiance. Voices rose together in a single cry. Fight! The market roared like a living thing. The Dominion soldiers staggered under the sudden wave of resistance. The commander tilted his head again. For the first time he seemed uncertain. Ethan stood at Serenia's side, his chest heaving. His voice was steady, though. You made one mistake, he said to the masked figure. You thought fear was stronger than hope. Serenia's fire ignited again. Brighter than before, it wrapped around her like a crown. Her roar shook the sky, and for the first time in many years, the Dominion soldiers stepped back. The battle was not over. The Dominion was vast, endless. But in that burning market, a spark had been lit. A human and a dragon had stood together, and that spark would spread across the stars. The fires of the market burned long into the night. The smell of smoke, metal, and blood lingered over the streets. The Dominion soldiers had withdrawn, their commander vanishing into the shadows with silent fury. They were not defeated, not truly, but they had not won either. And that alone was something no one had ever seen before. Ethan stood in the ruins of his workshop. The roof half collapsed, tools scattered. His hands shook as he tried to steady broken shelves. The rifle burns on the walls reminded him of how close it all had come. He turned when he heard heavy steps behind him. Serenia entered, her scales dim in the faint light. Smoke still rose from the black marks across her chest, where the commander's dark energy had struck. She walked slowly, each step heavy with exhaustion, but her eyes still burned with the fire of defiance. You should rest, Ethan said softly. He was holding a bent wrench in his hands, but his eyes kept flicking toward her wounds. I cannot rest, she replied, her voice low. The Dominion will return. They do not forgive, they do not forget. They will bring more soldiers, more machines. They will burn this market until nothing remains. Ethan sighed, dropping the wrench onto the table. Then we run? No, Serenia growled, her wings shifting. We do not run. We make them chase, we make them bleed for every step. Before Ethan could answer, A noise rose outside, not the sound of fear or mourning, but voices, many voices, aliens gathered in the ruined square, their faces tired, bruised, but their eyes alive with something new, hope. The insectoid merchant stepped forward, his glittering eyes fixed on Ethan and Serenia. "The Dominion has taken worlds," he said, his voice sharp. "They have broken empires. They have crushed councils, but tonight, here, they were stopped," another voice shouted. A reptilian traitor who had once mocked Serenia. "I saw her stand against their commander. I saw the human fight at her side. I will not forget. I will not kneel," the crowd murmured in agreement. Voices rose louder and louder, until they were chanting, "Fight, fight, fight." Ethan looked at Serenia, his chest heavy. "They think we can win," he whispered. Serenia's eyes narrowed. "And that belief will draw blood. The Dominion will come not just for us, but for them all. They must understand the cost," but even as she spoke, she knew it was too late. The spark had been lit. The fire was spreading by dawn. The story had left the market. Travelers carried it on their ships. Smugglers whispered it in cantinas. Merchants spoke it in trade hubs. On distant moons and forgotten colonies, the tale grew. A human mechanic and a dragon-born warrior had stood against the Dominion and lived. The story twisted with each telling. Some claimed Serenia had burned an entire army to ash. Others said Ethan had faced the commander alone and broken his blade. The truth mattered less than the meaning. The meaning was clear. The Dominion could bleed. Far away, in the black halls of a Dominion warship, the masked commander stood before his masters. His cloak was torn, his armor scorched. His voice was calm but sharp. "They resist. The human and the dragon stand together, and the market rallies to them." A figure cloaked in shadow sat on a throne of steel. Its voice was like ice. "Then we will erase the market. We will burn their hope before it spreads." The commander bowed his head. "Yes, my lord," but as he left the chamber, his hands clenched tightly for the first time. He felt a crack in his certainty. Back on the market world, Ethan and Serenia stood together at the edge of the ruins. The sun rose over the black smoke, painting the sky in red and gold. Serenia's wings caught the light. Glowing faintly, Ethan rubbed ash from his face, his expression weary. "They'll come soon," Ethan said quietly. "With more ships, more weapons, we can't hold this place." "No," Serenia agreed. "But we can take the fight elsewhere. We can lead them away. We can give these people time." Ethan looked at her sharply. "Lead them away? To where?" Serenia's eyes glowed faintly brighter. "To the stars, mechanic. There are others like me. There are old enemies of the Dominion who still hide, waiting. We will find them, and together we will rise." Ethan's stomach twisted. He had been a mechanic, nothing more. His hands built engines. Not armies, but when he looked at her, he knew there was no going back. The path had already been chosen. Before he could speak, a voice called from behind. The insectoid merchant approached, carrying a small data drive. "You cannot face the Dominion with fire alone," he said. "Take this. It contains records, roots, old alliances the council kept hidden. If you leave, you will need them." Ethan took the drive, nodding slowly. "Thank you." The merchant leaned closer, his eyes glittering. "You are not just a mechanic anymore. Human. Whether you wish it or not, you are a symbol, both of you are." As he left, Ethan stared down at the drive in his hand. His voice was quiet. "A symbol." Serenia's claw rested gently on his shoulder. "Symbols change worlds, Ethan." That night, as the stars lit the sky, Ethan worked in the ruins of his workshop, repairing an old starship hidden beneath scrap. Serenia stood guard, her wings stretched, watching the horizon. Every sound of the Dominion might be their doom. But for now they worked together, and far above, across systems and colonies, whispers spread faster than fleets, whispers of rebellion, whispers of hope. The Dominion thought they had crushed every spark. But one mechanic and one dragon had lit a fire they could not control. The galaxy was beginning to wake. The old starship shook as its engines roared to life. For hours Ethan had worked with ash-stained hands, pulling cables, fixing circuits, sealing cracks in the hull. He was a mechanic. This was what he knew best. But tonight it was not just a repair job. It was their last chance. Serenia stood at the ramp, her wings glowing faintly in the moonlight. Her eyes scanned the ruins of the market one last time. Behind her, dozens of alien refugees gathered, the ones brave enough to flee, mothers clutching children, merchants dragging supplies. Warriors gripping scavenged weapons. All of them looked at Ethan, waiting for a signal. "They are coming," Serenia said softly. She could feel the storm in the air, the Dominion ships descending. Her scales tingled with the faint vibration of war engines. Ethan pulled himself out of the engine bay, wiping grease across his face. "Then we don't wait," he said firmly. "Get everyone on board now." The refugees moved quickly, filing into the ship, the air thick with fear. Outside, the night sky split open. Streaks of fire as Dominion dropships entered the atmosphere. The invasion had begun. From the cockpit, Ethan gripped the controls. The starship rattled, old and heavy but alive. Serenia stood behind him, wings folded tight, her claws gripping the back of his chair. On the horizon, Dominion walkers thundered across the ground, their metal legs crushing stone, turrets glowing with heat. Fighters screamed through the clouds, hunting. "They'll never let us leave," Ethan muttered. "Then we break through," Serenia answered coldly. "Better to burn in the sky than kneel on the ground." Ethan smirked faintly, though his heart pounded. "You always know how to make things sound comforting." With a deep breath, he yanked the controls. The ship lurched upward, engines screaming. Fire tore across the streets as Dominion guns opened fire. Explosions rocking the city. The refugees screamed inside, but the ship rose higher, higher. The sky burned. A Dominion cruiser loomed above, its black hull blocking out the stars. From its hangars, swarms of fighters poured out, engines glowing like angry wasps. Serenia's claws dug into the seat. "They will swarm us," she growled. Ethan gritted his teeth. "Then let's give them something to chase." The starship dove suddenly, spinning through the smoke. Dominion fighters screamed past, lasers cutting through the night. Ethan weaved between blasts, his hands steady, every movement precise. He had never flown in battle before, but this was just another machine, another system to master. Behind him, Serenia pressed her clawed hand against the hull. Her eyes glowed bright gold. A faint shield of heat shimmered over the ship. Energy bled from her scales, her life force feeding the barrier. The first barrage struck, but the shield held. The refugees gasped, staring at her with awe. "You'll kill yourself," Ethan shouted. Serenia's voice was calm but fierce. "Then I will die as I should, protecting." The Dominion commander watched from the cruiser, his mask cracked from the last encounter. His voice was ice. "Lock onto the mechanic's vessel. Do not let them escape. Fire everything." The cruiser's cannons turned, energy gathering. A storm of destruction prepared to erase one old starship. Ethan saw the glow in the clouds. His stomach tightened. He could not outfly a cruiser. Not with this ship. He glanced back at Serenia, then at the terrified refugees. His voice was grim. "If they hit us, it's over." But before the cannons fired, alarms rang out across the Dominion fleet. A voice echoed through the void, carried on hidden frequencies. "This is the free clans," it roared. "This is the spark you could not kill." Out of hyperspace, ships emerged, ragged but fierce, old war frigates, pirate vessels, mercenary craft. They opened fire on the Dominion cruiser, ripping into its shields. The sky exploded with chaos. Serenia's eyes widened. "They came," she whispered. Her voice shook with something Ethan had never heard before. Hope. The Dominion fleet turned to meet the new threat. Fighters swarmed, cannons blazed. The free clans struck hard, but they were outnumbered. Outgunned, they fought like wolves against lions. In the middle of it, Ethan's old starship weaved between crossfire, a single fragile vessel in the storm. The battle raged for what felt like forever. Ethan's hands burned from gripping the controls. Serenia's shield flickered, dimming with every blast. Her body trembled, scales cracking from the strain. The refugees prayed in silence, each breath a plea for survival. Then, through the fire, the Dominion commander's ship loomed close, its black wings cutting across the stars. The commander's voice echoed on all frequencies, cold and merciless. "Human mechanic, dragon-born traitor, you cannot run from the Dominion. You will burn, and your fire will die with you." Ethan spat, his voice sharp, Funny. People keep saying that, but here we are. He pulled the ship into a dive, engines screaming. The commander's cruiser followed, heavy cannons charging. Serenia staggered forward, placing her claws on the console. Her voice was a whisper. "Take me closer, I will end this." Ethan looked at her in horror. "That's suicide." Her eyes locked onto his, glowing like molten fire. "Sometimes symbols must bleed, so others can rise." The starship tore through the battlefield, dodging wreckage, weaving past fighters. The Dominion cruiser bore down on them, its shadow vast. Inside, Serenia spread her wings, light pouring from her scales. The refugees covered their eyes. Ethan clenched his teeth. "Serenia, don't you dare leave me." She smiled faintly, sharp and fierce. "Then live, mechanic. Live enough for both of us." Her wings flared, and fire erupted. A wave of blazing energy surged from her body, slamming into the Dominion cruiser. Its shields shattered, armor melted. The massive ship reeled, flames bursting across its hull. Serenia collapsed, her body smoking, her breath shallow. Ethan caught her before she fell. His voice broke. "Stay with me." Her faint whisper. "Always." The Dominion fleet faltered. The Free Clans pressed their attack. Fighters swarmed the crippled cruiser, explosions tearing it apart. The commander's ship cracked in two, vanishing in a storm of fire. When the smoke cleared, silence hung in the void. The Dominion had been forced back. Not destroyed, but beaten. For the first time in generations, beaten. On the battered starship, Ethan carried Serenia to the medbay. Her chest rose weakly, her scales dim. He refused to let her go. His hands worked with trembling precision, patching wounds, stabilizing her. He was not just a mechanic anymore, but he could still fix what was broken. Hours later, as she slept, Ethan walked to the cockpit. Outside, the stars shone bright. Ships of the Free Clans drifted nearby, damaged but alive. The insectoid merchant's voice crackled over comms. "The story will spread, mechanic. They will sing of you and the dragon. The Dominion is not invincible. The galaxy knows it now." Ethan stared at the stars, his voice quiet but firm. "Then let them come. We'll be ready." And so it began. A mechanic and a dragon, a broken market, a burning sky, a spark that grew into fire. The Dominion had not fallen, but the galaxy had changed. It would never kneel so easily again.